Where is INSURTECH headed next? This is where indie agents own the answer. Welcome to the Vertafore Insurance Podcast. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Vertafore Insurance Podcast. Guys, your minds are going to be blown today. I have the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Seth Zaremba, founder and CEO of an amazing company called Vertafore, to share all about what's happening in the world of insurance data. All right, you ready to get into it, man?
I'm ready, yeah.
All right, so tell me a little bit about Seth. Before we get into Vertafore, I think it's important people know where Vertafore came from, right? Your backstory, your history.
Yeah, I got into insurance at the 2000s, the aughts.
Yeah.
And as an independent agent. And so everything we do at Vertafore comes from the lens of an independent agent. And so my first foray was in an independent agent in Cleveland, Ohio. We started a market access provider called Indium in Cleveland or Columbus, Ohio, that really just back at the time was cutting edge. It was market access for independent agents all over. And at the time, you really got my first look at kind of how carriers and agents didn't work together. I thought when they said partnership, I thought that meant that they did stuff together. But when you tried to move data back and forth between that and a third party, it was a mess. And so that was my first view of like, whoa, this is not a connected system. I started an independent agency from scratch in 2008, Zinc, and grew that and have continued to grow that over the years. And then out of that was born Vertafore, the wanting to connect everything together. It was a very simple ask at first, which was just, hey, I want my marketing, my sales, my telephony, my email, my text, my data, and my accounting all together connected. And at the time, that just wasn't a possibility. And so started doing that. And eventually agents and carriers started flying in from around the country and said, I want that. That's how I first met you. Walked into my life in 2017, I think. And just wanting to know more what a independent agent tinkering with this stuff could do. And out of that came the product, and we're continuing to scale and grow now.
Okay, so I want to take us back a couple steps and unravel a little bit more of the story of like Zinc to Vertafore, because that's such a cool story. And it's probably been a minute for you. But I remember I remember this was, 5 years ago now, 6 years ago maybe, that Zinc really made an impact on the industry because of how it was thinking about technology, right? Like you were one of the first that kind of, I don't know, just lightened up, brightened the scene, I guess, around your usage of technology. And you were so intentional, right, with how you thought about it. Why, I guess, is my first question, right? I mean, what was it? Some people will, have stories about, I acquired all these agencies, or, everybody's story is a little unique as far as where they found success. Why was it technology for you? I mean, I know you have like an engineering mind and background. Is that where it came from?
Yeah, perhaps. I've always been interested in how things work. And when I got into insurance, it was how things didn't work, which was frustrating. And I had good mentors in the business. So I was part of a state association, and they drilled into us the idea that you need to understand the business. And then when you go to the classes and they put on stuff, and it was like, this is so basic. This cannot be. And that was my first glimpse into the difference between being an insurance agency owner and a business person.
Wait, what do you mean by that? That's interesting.
Well, when you talk to agents, a lot of times they'll describe themselves as agents, right? And they have an agency. Yeah. And to me, that goes to, well, I sell insurance, and then I've assembled an organization around that. As a business person, it's almost industry. It's not industry specific. The fundamentals of running a business and scaling a business are universal. And it just seemed to me at the time, and I even still think today, independent agents don't think of themselves first or primarily as a business person. They think of the insurance skill and then operations. And that's really not how successful businesses scale. You have to have a significant understanding, appreciation, and investment in operations. And out of that, you should develop a world-class insurance practice. And I just think for, at least in my experience at the time, and what I've come to find to be true, is there's almost no thought to starting a business that happens to be an insurance. It's an insurance agency that we've got to turn into a business. And I just think that set me off the wrong way. And as I tried to get ahead of that and understand the fundamentals of the business, it was clear that the processes and the systems weren't connected together on that.
Yeah.
Insurance was separate from business at the time.
Yeah. How did you though? So if a lot of your environment was more, hey, I'm an insurance agent, right? If that was the messaging you were hearing, and how did you step out of that and decide to become a business owner, right? Did you step into a different environment? Is this just something that came to you naturally? I mean, truly, I remember meeting a friend of yours. This was when I was visiting you in Ohio, and you had left the room for some reason, and he and I were talking about drones.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, Seth just sits and thinks about business. He just sits and thinks about his business model in a way that, and this guy also owned an insurance agent. He was like, in a way that I just never would. Like, I just wouldn't do that. So did it come natural to you, or how did?
Well, I tell my kids that business is my sport. Like, there's agents that there's friends that like watch sports and like do fantasy football and all that stuff. And it's like, to me, I just think and obsess about business. And it's fun for me to think about how to do it better. And it has always been kind of a natural thing, just being in engineering and kind of building things, being the son of a builder, just how things went together. And it was clear that independent agents and carriers and customers had almost developed separately. And I guess my perspective at the time was, as an independent agent, I needed to have my eyes and understanding on my customer. I also have to understand how it affects the business that I'm building. And then I have to interact with this partner who I'm completely disconnected with, who operates for the common customer completely separately than me on different systems. How do I bring that together, and how do I make a profit? And at the time, and still today, the margins were starting to decline on that stuff. And so you could see that eventually compensation was going to go down as the customer went direct and as carriers fought different battles, that compensation was going to change over time. And we see it today. Increasingly, compensation continues to decrease over time. And so agents have to be able to extract three things. A killer customer experience, because the consumer gets to decide what we do or what they like. We also have to run a sophisticated operation that's connected and generates livable margins for ourselves. And then third, we have to work efficiently with our partners who produce the whole other end of the product and the promise that we sell. And so that's the mission at Be Atomic, is to pull all those things together and give people the insights and the abilities, the tools, and the connected infrastructure needed to make that happen.
Okay, so tell me, how much of this is the technology side of it, and then how much is the data? Because you're passionate about data and analytics and insights, and truly monetizing those, using those to value your agency. But there's also the seat license side of it, the technology side of it. Do I need an AMS? Do I need a CRM? Like, break the bubble of technology down for me, and then kind of do the split on, how much of it is that versus how much of it is the insights.
Yeah, I've been to a fair amount of bars in my time.
Oh, okay. We went there.
And every good bar stool has at least three legs, right?
Yep.
You can get away with less, but you're going to be rocking back and forth all night. You got to have at least three legs of the stool to be where you want to be. And I would just say it's the same thing with what the things we're talking about here. You have to have data, and you have to start with that. And I think that's what I probably stood out first, because I was obsessed with data at first. Like, I wanted to understand where I was making money, losing money, what was working, what wasn't working. And the systems at the time, and even today to some extent, didn't give you that insight. And so to me, there was a lot of insurance conference knowledge. There was a lot of associative knowledge, and there's a bunch of experts and speakers, and they're talking about these broad things. But when you go back to your agency on a Tuesday in February, it's like, what do I do with that? I've got a notebook from a conference with a couple of notes, and it's like, that wasn't giving me insight in the business. And so I think it's fair to say that every agent, every business person should have a good understanding of what's working and not working and what to do. As a leader, as a professional, and as a business person, that's important. Secondly, you do need technology. And as an industry, we haven't thought that through very well. We have a lot of disconnected technology that we ask non-technology people to use. And we don't, when on the technology side, we don't think about the level of cost associated with disconnected services, but it's huge for a small business. And most independent agents are small businesses, but it's no different at large ones. If you develop an AMS or a CRM or a phone system, and none of those talk together, we ask the agent to either make that happen or build processes around it. And those processes rob them of margin, and those are the things that make it very hard to be survivable as an independent agent. Then I think the third thing is we have to have connectivity and services. There has to be ways that our business is open to resources coming in. And most of the systems that we were raised on in the insurance industry were not open. So even if you could figure out a level of data, a good spreadsheet, even if you could somehow connect all these things together, there are still things that are happening in the world that we need inside of an independent agent. And systems not built to do that make it hard. And so when you take those three, data, systems, and then connected services or technology, it opens up so many opportunities to scale and grow. And let's face it, independent agencies are worth a lot of money. And these are very valuable assets. And what we're talking about here, done well, can generate millions of dollars in value, which could, well, heck, it can make generational wealth inside of it. It can also allow larger organizations to partner with it. So there's just so many things to do in that. And to treat them as just an insurance agency, said sarcastically, it doesn't do it the service it deserves.
So how would you break those three things down into a tech recommendation, right? Not to be trivial about it in any way, right? But what are the systems that power that model, right? Like, what is it? Is it an agency management system? Is it a sales enablement tool? Is it a VoIP? Like, how many? And I ask this too, knowing
stop buying technology.
Like where I am. Also interesting, Catalyst. Do you know Catalyst?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they did a study, 2022, that came out and said that an agency had on average 6 pieces of technology, and then 2023, 8 pieces of technology. So clearly we have.
That's what we see, eight technologies running an agency.
Technologies.
Almost none of them built to go together.
Okay. So, so hit me with what you're thinking, right? And I guess in terms of Zinc too, right? Because we haven't gotten to be atomic yet. So what you're building out Zinc's tech stack, what does that look like?
Well, I guess I would start by saying we start at the wrong place. We start with a technology purchase, and then we try to operationalize it inside of the agency. And I see it time and time again. We network, we attend events throughout the industry, and we hear of all the amazing things that can be done. And as agency principals, as business owners, we want those solutions. And too often we're buying stuff, we bring it back, and there was no strategy around it. There was no understanding of the connectivity. There was no of the payback on it. And so we have these stacks of technology that are being purchased, and there's no strategy behind them. And so even when agents are talking to me, I say, stop buying stuff. That's the first thing, is like, just stop. Put the credit card away. Put that thing in a cup. Fill it with water. Throw it in the freezer.
Put it in the freezer.
Just stop subscribing and buying stuff. Now, let's go back to the strategy. What is your strategy? What are you trying to accomplish? And that's different for each independent agent. You talk to so many good agencies are just trying to maintain their book. There are some that are trying to grow and scale. There are some that are trying to integrate technology. There are some that are regional, niche. I mean, there are so many different, that's the reason they're independent. And so each one requires a different approach to those things, but almost never does it mean start by buying a technology. And so what I encourage agents to think about is, where do you want to take this thing? So with my agency, Zinc, we started from dead zero. And I wanted to scale it and grow it. I never wanted to be in that business with my kids. They were young. I knew it wasn't going to happen. So to me, it was always, let's build it to sell it. And even if you're not doing that, that mindset makes you think about what I would have to do in order to get the most value for that. And I think that's a valuable place for agents to start. So where do we want to go with this thing? And then how do we get there? And it is never 8 at one time. right? And so, interesting from a data standpoint, 75% of interactions happen through email and phone inside of an agency. Start with the basics. You know, if you're a Vertafore user, you know, does your phone integrate? And can you start to workflows and things off of those things that your customers are using? Those are very basic things, but they allow you to build. The data, I think, is the most important thing to start with. You have to understand where you're at, and you also have to measure what progress you're making.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. But so tell me about Be Atomic first. So what is Be Atomic? How did you go from Zinc to Be Atomic? Because it feels like, if I can, you know, Be Atomic, Zinc was sort of Be Atomic's lab.
Yeah.
Or Neon's lab, I should say.
Yep.
Maybe you can make the differentiation there. And then it sort of outgrew Zinc because agents started seeing it and saying like, hey, I'm interested in this. And now it is what it is today. So walk me through that and where you're at today.
Yeah, so go back a few years. It was like, okay, you were onto something. I'm not even sure. So I look back at it. I would like to have been clear on what it was. Be Atomic, the company, came from that. And Neon, the platform, is what we're in the market today with. And it's really built on three things. Turning data into money, so getting information in the proper way so that you can use it to gain insight on your operation, to compare and benchmark against your tools, and then to get insights that allow you to see where you're performing or not performing, the cost of those insights or those activities, and then how to improve it. The second thing is connecting CRM with AMS. And so I can't imagine a world going forward where an agent isn't thinking very hard about AMS 360 and agencies, or in my case, the Neon app connected to multiple AMSs. If you think about an AMS, it was built as a policy management system, which it does really well, and it was meant to move information between these partners, between carriers and agents, right? And that is an extremely important service. I don't think I ever gave it as much credit as it was probably deserved at the time. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't really help with the model that independent agents live in. And so the way I talk about it is an AMS, this is very basic, is built on the hierarchy of an account within a policy and a contact. And you hear agency principals running around all the time like, put the customer data in. We don't have their emails. We don't have their phone because it's not a priority. If you got the account, it can receive policies, and then we need to get contacts in there. That's great for policy structure. Independent agents operate in directly the opposite data model. Think about a CRM. A CRM is a contact who bought a policy associated with an account. It's literally opposite. And so we have this system that is directly opposite to how we operate. And the challenge with the AMS only model is not many other technologies were built on that data model. When an agent's working together and the CRM and AMS are talking, that CRM data model talks to everything. Phone systems, emails, technology, INSURTECH, everything works off of that CRM data model. And so the two of those together are really powerful for independent agents. And then the third is connectivity and services inside workflows and automations. So any agent listening to this knows that they were probably trained to get the manual for the AMS, and it's like, hey, Seth, sit down at this table, and you're going to do a change, and you hit Control F2, go to account, open up policy, drop down, attach, send email, drop copy, send. That is expensive in this day and age. And so CRM combined with AMS creates all sorts of workflows. And those workflows can be repeated over time. So you can literally sit anybody inside those workflows and have them go. It's important. Then automation allows them to make them more efficient, to scale. And ultimately, the responsibility of a company like Be Atomic with the Neon platform is to deliver services into that workflow to make them more profitable. That could be third-party data feeds. That means we don't have to fat finger stuff in. It could be delivering services, literally servicing and selling policies in that. It could be bringing data out for other people to use. But those three things, data into money, CRM into AMS, and services into workflow is what Be Atomic is all about.
Okay, so there's a lot there. I don't know if I know where I want to start because it could be 16 different places. So maybe we start with the data piece. Yeah. Okay, we can back into some of the workflows because I think once people start to hear the insights that you're able to get, then they're going to want to know how you got there, right? So if normally I'd start with the technology, but let's flip flop. Let's start with the data. So you're able to get to some really unique data points that I have never seen in any technology before. I mean, not even Vertafore solutions. I mean, right? Have some of those data points, which is really cool. And you really created these data points yourself. I mean, I don't even know that they exist in another vertical. They're so unique to insurance.
We are inventing the metrics that matter in the 21st century. I believe.
Yeah. I would agree. So talk me through, like, when you say data, you're not talking about, I'm sure an agent listening is thinking, oh, total revenue, total premium, retention,
social security numbers.
Right. So walk me through what you're talking about there.
All right, this is going to blow your mind.
Okay.
Well, not yours.
See, I told them you'd blow their mind. So let's go.
Service people only do 22 things. Salespeople only do 5 things.
Yeah.
There is a universe of 27.
And you're not joking. You mean actually 22 things and actually.
I'm not joking.
Yeah. Yes.
We make this so hard.
Yeah.
And we're all just have our, I do a certificate. I do this way. We have all these processes. We only do 27 things in this world of insurance, right? All of those things have activities associated with them, right? I want to add, remove a vehicle. Okay, what do I have to do? I have to get the information. I have to look up the information. I have to take the notes on the information. I have to send the information to the carrier. I have to get the price then. I have to get it to the customer. It's a finite level of things we do. And so our approach, my approach, from an engineering standpoint was like, okay, how many times does that happen? What's involved with it? What's the cost associated with it? And what's the net value, gain or loss, to the agency in terms of revenue? So just use my agency as an example. I'm going to round numbers here just to make it easy because I'm Polish from Cleveland, but Zinc will do roughly 30,000 service requests this year, right? Yeah. If I could do those $5 cheaper than my competitors, who are also doing 30, that means I'm making an extra $150,000 a year net. If you were worried about valuation, let's just round numbers at a 10 multiple, that's 1.5 million of value added to an agency value by just looking at the things that they do from a service processing side. There is huge money in the things that we do. These repetitive, low or no margin processes are the source of our greatest expense. 70% of an agency expense is tied into those processes. 94% of the agency revenue is tied to those processes. And yet, if you asked most agents if they knew their unit increment costs per transaction, they would tell you they have no clue, which is ridiculous. If you go to any car factory, they're like, that part's $2, that one's $10.
Right.
Any assembly line, any repetitive process, you need to know your unit increments. You need to know how many times it happens.
Kitchens, restaurants, right? Yeah.
Reduce it, right?
Yep.
So the data from our perspective isn't about like how much volume do you have. I mean, we have that stuff, but that's not the interesting stuff. The stuff is how can we use data to inform a behavior and incent people to improve it going forward? And then how can we, looking at that data, deliver services that affect the economics of an agency? I can now prove to any agent that there is probably another 10 to 15% of margin sitting inside of an agency that they will never get to unless they have data. And I want to unlock that for independent agents through this whole channel. Okay,
so talk to me about the metric cost per transaction. That's one of the what I would call unique metrics that you guys look at, the invented metrics. What does that mean? How do you use it? Like, how did you come up with it?
It's my sports. So get this. I'll use another one that every agent listening to this would know.
Okay.
The average cost inside of my agency to add, remove a coverage is $33.15. I showed you that earlier today.
So you know that it costs $33.15 to anytime a customer calls in and raises their hand and says, I'm changing the red truck to the blue truck.
Yeah.
That's $33.15.
In my agency.
In your agency.
In Ohio.
In your agency.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Ohio. But in New York City, it might be $50. In California, it might be $75. And so this is why there are no industry metrics, revenue per employee or, CSR per million. I mean, it's like, it's ridiculous. So you need to know that unit increment. So for instance, it's $33 on average. However, inside of my agency, we have 14 or 15 CSRs. That changes. It can be as much as, if you're using a VA, $3 or $4 to do it, up to your highest paid CSR, it might cost you $50 to do it, right? But on average, it costs $33.15 to be able to change that. Well, we're doing 5,000 or 6,000 of those a year. That's a number. That's a number. And so that data allows me as an independent agent to say, well, wait a second. Let's not divide the agency up by alphabet. Hey, Sid, you take A through L and I'll take M through Z. And anything that comes that way, you're going to handle that. By thinking about that data, I can say, well, wait a second. If there's truly a $40 difference on who does it, why don't we take those 5,000 ad removes and get them to the person who's best suited from a cost and performance standpoint to do it? So now, much like a conductor of an orchestra using data, an agent can look at these repetitive, no margin tasks and be able to say, well, wait a second, Sid would be really good on this one. Her skills are great over here, and we can get that. Or with Neon, we can say, well, wait a second, our service center will do it for $6. So now here's a set cost happening $5,000 at $33, and now delivering services in the workflow, we can cut that cost for an agent down to $6.50.
Yeah.
And that's like so much money. Times 5,000.
Yeah. So what blows my mind about this is if I were to ask pretty much any agency walking down the halls of a conference, hey, how many certificates did you guys send today? How many renewals did you process this week? The volume itself is a number that most people can't get to. Because, and we'll get to the technology, but because they don't have the technology in the right place, right? Everybody's using the AMS however they want to. And it wasn't built to tell me how many certificates were done or how many renewals. You have taken it 10 steps further to say, not only do I want to know how many, like the volume, I want to know the cost to my agency. That's incredible.
It's not.
Okay. Andy's humble too, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I mean, if you were a grandparent of a big family, would it be like, it's a lot to know your 27 or 22 kids of your grandkids' names? Or it would be a lot to know what the 22 grandkids' likes are. That's not a lot to know.
Yeah.
And so I just refuse that premise anymore, that it's too much to know. Hey, guys, there's 27 things to figure out. We can help you figure those things out. And once you do, you should know your cost. You should know. Don't go on the Price of Right and not know what a dozen eggs cost.
Yeah.
You gotta know.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so walk me through, now that we've gotten a peek, and I don't want to give the whole, the goose away with the eggs.
Gander?
I don't
know. But we will not give it away.
I started that analogy and quickly fell off a cliff.
That's okay.
So, knowing we don't want to give the whole thing away, you guys are going to have to talk to Seth if you want to know more. Let's back into the tech. This is what's possible when the technology is set up in the right way. And you used this phrase very early on when I first met you. We have to be good stewards of data.
Yeah.
Right. And that means not just using the data, but also collecting the data, thinking about how it's structured, all those things. So that's the seat license conversation. That's the technology conversation, right? Walk me through. Is this happening in the AMS? Is this happening in the CRM? Is it any CRM? Like, how does this work, right?
Yep. I believe that AMS and CRM have to be connected together. I do. I didn't always know that, and I certainly didn't always articulate that very well. But I think that's the magic. That's the peanut butter and jelly. That's literally the chocolate and the peanut butter. Those two things together, because of the different data models together, allow you to understand, see, and accomplish so much more with the technology. Now, that's a seat cost, right? So we get into technology. I have a seat of AMS, I have a seat of CRM. Does it have its value? That's where the data comes in and says, yes, there is value in this. That is a good investment. If you're a good steward of your agency, this is a good investment, and the data will validate that these two seats together pay for themselves. And as a partner, Neon, we have the obligation to show you that. We should be able to show you that, hey, these two seats together are going to reduce your cost on these thousands of transactions, and it will pay for itself. And as an industry from a technology side, we have not done a good job of that. It's just like, here's your seats. Go figure it out. It is very hard to see going forward how an agency that's focused on scaled and growth and livable margins isn't combining those two technologies together. From our standpoint, we're agnostic to AMS, and so we see ourselves as the CRM connected to every AMS out there. We have not accomplished that yet, full disclosure, but we've connected to 2 so far in our first couple of years. We've got 3 coming on next year, and we see the opportunity to say, listen, AMS, be really good at that and focus on the huge data structure issues we have, some of the connectivity issues work with us on the carrier side, and we can standardize these workflows across the industry and provide amazing insights to every insurance agent, regardless of AMS, and that's where I think the goal is. That said, there are many good CRMs that you can accomplish the same strategy with. Were they built to make that kind of data, give that kind of insight, extract and deliver services into it? Maybe not. Do they have to get there? They're going to have to. Yeah, they have to in order to validate that investment and to show that.
Okay, so should we let the cat out of the bag?
Sure.
Okay. You just teed me up so perfectly. I can't not now.
Yeah.
You were looking deep in my eyes. I was like, he's asking me to just lay it out on the table. So, for those of you guys listening who are on AMS 360, who are on Agency Zoom or considering Agency Zoom, there is going to be a world where you have access to these types of insights through Atomic coming very soon. We're really excited to partner with Seth and his team to make this happen. I don't know. Do we want to give them more than that?
No.
Okay.
Well, only to protect the innocent. So it's a big world out there.
Yeah.
So Vertafore, massive company, a lot of product development going on and a lot of platform development going on. And so there's a lot of stuff where we overlap, some of the stuff that we're doing. And so in terms of roadmap, no, I don't want to go there, although I think it's deep. But to start with...
Like chocolate and peanut butter deep? Or
really,
yeah. Okay,
like Seth and Sid deep. It's just like kind of
deep.
That's what I'm saying. But just like when we talked about agencies, where do you start? I would be a hypocrite to say, well, let's start at technology. Let's start at the data. And so Neon Analytics, which is already a platform that multiple AMSs are working with, allows us then, that partnership allows us to start looking at the data. And in a cooperative nature, we can work with the existing products with Vertafore. So we can work with AMS 360 and Zoom and potentially bring insights into those users. And then who knows what comes next with that. But the opportunity then is to say, hey, listen, let's take the work that we've done on that side, the very unique mindset or brain that I have around insurance and technology, the massive infrastructure opportunity and user base that Vertafore has, and bring those things together and start solving problems. And of course, we would start with the data. 2 data organizations would start with the data.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you and August talked earlier, there's a lot of work being done on the back end of Vertafore products to bring the data together, to cleanse it, to get it out of systems so that we can get it into platforms like Atomic and Neon Analytics to make sure that you guys have what you need. So I'm excited.
I don't think I don't know that I was always in this space, but I don't think it's a threat anymore to work together on that kind of stuff. I think it's I think especially Vertafore has created an open environment where that stuff happens. And just listening to August and his roadmap, my goodness, like, please, would you go save that world? Like that's he went 4 years out, and it was like, okay. But immediately the things that we can do together to help agents get in a sense where they understand, great. We can inform and give insights, which should change agency economics. And then I think it unlocks greater partnership and opportunities with other products and services.
Absolutely. So, Absolutely. Okay, so you guys heard it here first. If you don't have your Accelerate ticket, just saying, I'm just putting it out there. You might want to get that at some point. And if you don't, keep your eyes open and your ears open for more news on the Atomic Vertafore partnership.
There was a threat of a Butterbroat Zaremba presentation at that.
There might have been. Yeah, there was a lot of whiteboarding going on. So yeah. All right, guys. With that, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. We're really looking forward to seeing you next week. And Seth, thank you for coming.
Sid, thanks for having me.